Hello, I'm Ron Sarnicki, Executive Director of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. The Foundation is proud to bring you Everyone Goes Home for Wildland Firefighting. This documentary tells the dramatic story of one incident that changed wildland firefighting forever. This video is not just for wildland firefighters. It's for anyone who wants to learn from the past to make the future safer for all of us. I hope you will watch this video and remember the 14 firefighters that died on Storm King Mountain that day in July of 1994. Although their lives have been lost, as you will see, their spirits live on in these survivor stories, and most of all, in you as you watch this presentation.
Wildland firefighting is any fire that takes place out in the woods or in a grassland area.
We get to fight forest fires, we get to fight brush fires, we get to fight grass fires. We're off in the woods and the mountains and the hills. A lot of outdoor, arduous work in conditions that most people would probably not want to do.
The person that is successful in wildland fire is good with people and is very aware.
Goal-oriented and driven.
Somebody who's physically strong as well as mentally strong and very adaptable to anything that comes their way.
People that are flexible, getting along with others, and don't mind suffering a little bit.
Somebody that's fit, that's able to take the rigors of the job, the heavy packs, the lack of sleep, the poor food.
They can tolerate hard work day after day, and sometimes night after night.
These people are the happiest when they're dirty and in a tent and tired and hungry.
And perhaps to some extent we also enjoy risk.
You compare structural firefighters and wildland. You could see these two worlds and they're two worlds apart. However, we have the same mission, and that is to slay the dragon.
When you get to a structure fire, you know where your fire is going to go. And you often don't know that on a wildland fire.
We're not in a town. We don't have fire hydrants. A lot of times we don't have a water source at all. So what we're doing is putting a barrier between burned fuel and unburned fuel, and that's the fire line. Or we're just using dirt to extinguish burning materials. A lot of times we fight fire with fire. We'll actually light fire from a control line and make it more defensible that way. And I don't think structural fires set a backfire in a bedroom so they can save the living room.
In wildland firefighting, we'll direct it, the fire, and we'll use different crews. We'll use hell attack, there's smoke jumping, there's hot shot crews, there's type 1, type 2 crews, there's engines.
And these guys go out and protect your hunting range, watersheds, public lands. It's a job they love to do, and they do it very well.
They are folks that have a little bit of an appetite for danger.
The South Canyon fire was this wake-up call to the wildland fire community.
We all wanted to go to Colorado. Colorado was burning in a way that Colorado usually does not burn. It had a reputation as being the asbestos state. So just the fact that you're going to Colorado on a fire ought to tell you something.
So the Prineville Interagency Hotshot Crew was dispatched to a small, and I call it benign, fire in Glenwood Springs, Colorado.
It looked benign. You may think that it looked routine.
And I remember thinking to myself, this is a mop-up show. And I'm a hotshot. I don't mop up.
from what I could see from the Canyon Creek Estates, from where the helibase was a fire fairly uniform on the slope, on the contour. So I really had no thought about downhill line construction.
The hotshot crew got split up, and half the crew got flown up to the ridgetop, and they started working.
There's one helicopter manning the fire, a small helicopter, so it can only take 5 members of the crew at a time. There's 20 people on our crew. So it made a couple shuttle loads up to the ridge line.
The helicopter they had to do some other business. They had to hook up a bucket and start dipping water and putting some water on the fire for the folks that were up there already. So we ended up sitting for about an hour and a half.
It's about 1500 in the afternoon. The helicopter stopped shuttling water. He shuttled the remaining crew up to the ridge line. I recall when I got out of the helicopter, we have our buddy system on the crew. And my buddy had been on the fire for a couple hours, and I assumed that we would be joining our fellow firefighters from Prineville who were doing some fire line improvement down the west slope of South Canyon. However, when we arrived on the ridge line, the IC, the incident commander of the fire, said, "No, we've got this town of Glenwood Springs to the east, and we need to clear a path void of vegetation." And so we started cutting gamble oak, pinyon pine, juniper component. On the ridge line, it was entertaining for me because the sawyers, the chainsaws, they would cut the debris, and all I had to do was pick up the limbs and debris and throw it straight in the air. And the wind was so strong from the west, it would carry it to the east drainage.
I was throwing brush, and it was super easy because you would just toss it up in the air. You're on the top of these pretty sharp ridges, and the wind would take it.
So it was entertaining until the hair on the back of your neck stood up.
Next, there was a call from above from Michelle Ryerson that she had a spot. She needed help.
I call my folks down to me, and a helicopter comes in, puts some water on the spot fire, direct them to go up the ridge line. Let's hook this thing, because this could be an important thing, because that spot fire is on the ridge line in between us and our safety zone. So, important to knock that thing down.
We're starting to go near H1, and by this time the wind's howling, the cold front's coming in.
The fire from down below keeps getting bigger, column keeps getting bigger.
It actually exploded. The hillside exploded. The gamble oak, it had been, it was underburn. So it hadn't burned, the fire hadn't burned up into the canopy of gamble oak. And this was 10, 12 foot gamble oak vegetation. So when that heat, it just exploded the hillside, and all of a sudden, the Primal Hotshot crew and the BLM crew who were on top of the ridge were in that same situation. Like, we gotta get out of here. We were told to continue up the ridge. There was a helispot that had been cleared out and burned around in days prior, and that was our safety zone.
We line out down the ridge line, and it's a nice, orderly, brisk, but orderly walk.
It was very intense, but it was an organized movement based off of the fact that we're just a tight team that's working together and have worked together.
We had a wall of flame coming up on our right, to the west. Investigation reports say 200-300 foot tall flame length, a quarter-mile wide.
We get up into some rocks, and the fire is getting louder, and the smoke is getting blacker.
And as we were running towards the safety zone, I remember seeing these huge boulders, probably the size of a Volkswagen Bug, and right behind it was this churning blackness. And I remember just running towards it because that's where we were told to go.
I yell out, reverse and move.
And then at that time we heard, abort, turn around, you've been cut off.
Because at that point the fire is there. And we move down the ridge and the fire moves with us. And we've moved down the ridge and the fire moves with us. Everybody turns around And at that point, things fall apart. This tight group starts to fragment, and people start going off down the other side of the ridge line.
I would say it was every man for himself for a few minutes as we were scrambling down the hill.
So now we turn around and we're running back down the ridge line. We have the flame front to our left.
We only have one option, and that's down that east canyon. So that's where we went.
The choice to run down the east side, for me, there was no stop, assess your options, talk it over. On your left side is a solid wall of flame. Smoke so dark it's blocked the sun out. And on your right side is fresh air and blue sky. I mean, there's no thought process. It's just go that way. It may not be safe in the textbook. It's a lot better than it is on that side.
But it was really our only option. We did not have any other way to go.
It was extremely scary at that moment. You didn't know exactly what you were going down into. The main fire had already spotted over the ridge top. Some small spot fires are beginning an upslope run back towards the ridge top, and you're descending down into that. As a firefighter, you're not trained to run down into a canyon that's on fire. And it was a little uneasy, and it was a little helter-skelter.
It's hot, and it's noisy, and things aren't right.
And there was this BLM firefighter in front of me, and he was running slow. And it just I'm like, run faster!
He'd fall down, and I'd pick him up, and I'd fall down, and I'd pick him up. I'm getting mad at this guy, and things are just closing in.
When we arrived at the spot where the helicopter had just dropped us off within the last hour, it was chaos, yelling, flame fronts arrived at the ridgeline, and I ran up to my foreman and he told us to pull our shelters. So we had been trained copious times how to pull out a shelter, how to get into a shelter. It was no big deal, right? But when you're in that situation and somebody tells you to pull your shelter, that's the first time that I thought we wouldn't make it. At this time, it was like, well, where's the other crew? They're not with us on this ridgeline. Where are they? I had a fellow crew member pull my shelter for me and handed it to me. We moved a little distance, and that ridgeline is like a razorback. So I just dropped off to the east. It was just... And so as we went down into the east drainage a little ways, at that time I believe the Dolmars that was containing our chainsaw gas were exploding. The fusees were going off, the flame front was there, and at that time I froze. Solid.
It was like she had seen something that the rest of us did not see.
So we talk about situational awareness. And that's where the foreman on our crew noticed I wasn't coming. And he came back to me and he used his fist and some choice profanity.
I think I hit her on the head with my hard hat.
And he started hitting me in the helmet and telling me to get mad. Get mad. And I remember that.
But she took it well.
And the switch came back on, movement started. And we were diving to the ground, pulling ourselves through the Gamble Oak. It was so thick to get down into the drainage. So this fear is you're going down into a drainage with fire potentially below you. It's a bad trap. So the whole time on the radio it was like, are we clear? Are we clear? Do we need to get out of here? And the flame front is obviously coming down into the east drainage by now.
Word of mouth started coming up that it's clear to the highway, which once you got that word, it was just get down there fast. It's clear now, but boy, once something starts there, it's a country that burns fast. So it was just a scramble down that old dried out gully.
What's going through my mind at the time we bailed off into the canyon was that I've lost my guys. They're gone. It just was overwhelmed by this sick feeling. First of all, that Those guys had trust in me, and I let them down.
Eventually, we made it to I-70. I remember going up to the superintendent on my crew and asking where my buddy was. My buddy is somebody I was responsible for.
I get out to the highway and I am focused on finding the rest of the crew. Took some time for the folks that were up on the hill to come out of their fire shelters, and they eventually found the bodies of our crew.
By a miracle of miracles, we made it down there, except the folks that were coming up that west slope.
It was one sentence over the radio. The question was, do we need an ambulance? And the answer was no, it's too late. And it takes your breath away. Takes your breath away. Because there's no, there's no slides for this. You don't get trained for this.
The foreman on the crew, the one that had knocked some sense into me, came into the hospital and told me the 9 primal hot shots that we had lost, the 3 smoke jumpers, and the 2 Helitech boys hadn't been found yet. So 14. What was very difficult for me, and I know we all experience grief, it's part of life. We had 5 women on that primal hotshot crew in 1994, and 4 of them died. So it sucked to be me, because we were very close. 2 of the gals I had gone through high school with, and they were everything to me. And you get that sisterhood in the firehouses and on your crews, you can't beat it. I miss them.
One thing I know about these people is when someone gets killed out there, I don't know of anyone that doesn't crawl in their tent at night and weep.
In a way, it was a unique experience for everyone. And the way you carry it will be unique. But the worst way to carry it is inside.
I knew that I needed to be around other firefighters, the people that understood what firefighting was like and what a family it was and how close you are with your coworkers.
I essentially fell off the radar for several weeks. I don't even know that the guys knew if I was coming back. And then I got a phone call one day asking, and I was already having the itch to get back, and it was a need to get back with the crew.
I talked about it with a lot of firefighters, and ultimately that helped me to continue to heal from it.
I literally ran to help. I mean, I knew that I was going to need help because in my private moments during the course of that year in the summer when no one was around and I wasn't at work were difficult times. So
Everyone just kind of sheltered me to the point of isolation. Isolation is not a good thing. The agency didn't know what to do with me because I did not return to the crew. So the agency put me in a lookout tower, and they're like 65-foot towers with a little cupola on top, and you look out into the horizon for smokes. So you sit up there in isolation chamber for 2 months, contemplating the hell that you just experienced 3 months prior. So I was kind of very prideful, didn't want anybody to know I was having problems with flashbacks, with nightmares. It was a very lonely time. I didn't talk. I never told my story. I spiraled very quickly because I didn't have that fire peer support because I removed myself from that. It was a windstorm in the winter and the poplar trees and the wind going through that, and I was howling. And I would physically drop to my knees and start hyperventilating. This is in like 2004. This is 10 years after the event, and I am crippled by that event. So in 2006, I was taking a first aid course from a structural firefighter in Bend, Oregon. And I was working with the oxygen tank. And I'm like, oh, I love oxygen. The training chief, he's like, why do you like oxygen? And I'm like, well, I used it a few years ago. And he kept prodding, why? And I'm like, well, I was on the South Canyon fire. And he's like, oh, have you told your story? And he's like, it's so cathartic, you've got to tell your story. And I stood before this class and I told him my story of South Canyon fire. And this was the very first time ever I had verbally said it out loud. It was epic. It changed me.
If our firefighters aren't taken care of, if their health's not good, if their physical fitness, emotionally, mentally, and they're not followed up after perhaps a catastrophic incident, then all this other, I call it stuff, really doesn't matter.
That fire, that season, led to the culture change and where we're going now.
We are actively moving the culture towards a culture of learning, a culture of valuing stories, of valuing unintended outcomes as positive learning opportunities.
All we can do is really learn from those and continue plugging along, keeping mission focused.
We have to have a personal ethic of that it's actually our duty to say, this happened to me because I want other firefighters to learn from this. Ultimately, that's how we're going to become safer and more effective at our jobs.
It's both from the ground up to the top down that we have truly become a learning culture. We embrace it.
We've had huge significant strides from our work rest guidelines to being able to speak out, stop work, trigger points, incident response pocket guides, a bunch of initiatives with just making sure our people are prepared from training to getting the job done safely.
We're going to come and save the community, but we have to look for ourselves first. We have to take care of the 20 people that are with us every day.
The Wildland Firefighters' primary role is to protect lives and property. But above all that, they need to protect themselves. They're the resource that we depend on to protect those lives and property.
The bottom line is that nothing's more important than the firefighter on the ground and their safety.
And from managing risk and understanding how to recognize hazards and mitigate risks, we've come up with a smarter, more intelligent, more decisive workforce.
This focus on human factors and paying attention to not just the science of how fire moves, but the science of how people interact and how that affects safety. That emphasis has had a dramatic change in our culture and how we engage in fire.
When the Prineville hotshots got to the South Canyon fire, there were a lot of people there already. When you get to that fire and there's already a lot of stuff there, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of people doing different stuff. There's this social thing that's already going on already, and you gotta figure out how you fit into that. And if there's something wrong, you gotta be looking for it. You know, are people talking to each other? Am I getting a good briefing? Are people looking at where the fire is and what it's gonna do? Are they thinking about that? And are they talking about that? Are we gonna catch this thing? Are we doing the right thing? Does this tactic make sense? Not just does it make sense down here with my Pulaski digging in the dirt, does it make sense to this helicopter guy up there? Because they have a different perspective. Everybody has a different perspective on that fire. And the only way you identify when something is going wrong is when everybody's talking, and everybody was not talking.
It seems to be the one thing that we always find flaws in when something happens. It's always the anchor point of a breakdown. Many times it's a simple little piece of information that doesn't get passed, or there's an assumption made that somebody knows something.
Be willing to speak up. Be willing to make sure that you need to take care of you, because you can't do your work if you're not taking care of yourself.
We never had that prior. Years ago, you just basically got into it and you started fighting fire. Today, Everyone's part of the briefings. Everyone's taught to speak up, to have a voice. If they have a concern about tactically, any kind of tactical operation they're doing, they're all taught to say something.
The first-year firefighter can come in and feel like they have a voice.
Everybody needs to know what's going on around them, and they need to ask questions if they don't.
If you see a problem, don't just sit back, cross your arms, and complain. Be a part of the resolution.
People died on Storm King Mountain because poor decisions were made. It's not a blame thing. There are smart people out there. Why did we continue to go forward with the poor decisions that had been made earlier when they were obviously needed correction? Why weren't those decisions questioned? And by the time they were questioned, the situation was too far out of our control to mitigate.
The South Canyon fire was a seminal event for most of us who were in wildland firefighting at the time. We all know that bad things can happen, but to have something happen on that scale to a group of folks like that, those were our best people. Those were our smoke jumpers, our hot shots, our hell attack. That was us that happened to.
One of the most important lessons of South Canyon at the ground level is things can change really, really fast. But if you're paying attention, you can see it coming. And if collectively, we're on our game and we're all listening, then we pay attention to those little things. We track those small failures, and we do something about it.
There is no doubt that wildland fires are on the increase.
Fires are not going to go away. Fires are going to get bigger, they're going to get hotter, they're going to cause more damage.
There's a lot more urban interface that's encroaching into the wildland environment. It's always going to be there.
In the wildland-urban interface, you have a complexity of factors that we may not even recognize today that are going to come together in the future that are going to make it more difficult for us to contain or maintain these blazes.
Our vegetation, our people moving into the wilderness is growing. We have more of a need now for wildland firefighters than we ever have.
We need to be much smarter in how we manage our wildfires, what we choose to do with those wildfires. If this fire gets a little bigger because we need to do something to be safe, then so be it. Trees will go back, people won't. We all need to go home at the end of the day.
There will be more fires, there will be more risks, there will be accidents. But what we're trying to do here today with our objective in this partnership is to ensure that we have the best information so that everybody goes home.
The one thing that I know about firefighters, they're close-knit, and that's their family too that died that day. Even if it's been 18 years, some of them still are suffering from those deep strokes that they had that day. And it's powerful to be with them and see them heal and see them come that long way back to find those pieces of their self they left out in the forest that day someone died.
Firefighters are worth saving, and we've worked very hard to make that happen.
So please make our mission your mission, so everyone goes home.
Be a student of fire, know your fire orders, and have a good time.
Remember, never forget your situational awareness and maintain 100% focus.
This is a difficult, dangerous job. Take care of yourself and take care of your people.
Forestry is a slow science. Fighting wildland fire, that's an immediate art.
Remember, leadership and safety start at the ground level.
Take care of yourself out there and be good to one another.
Stick to the fundamentals of firefighting, the 10 and 18, and you'll end up coming home safe.
Don't take the tools that we have for granted. Use them.
10 great flights doesn't mean that the 11th flight is going to be that way too. Don't be complacent.
Work hard, have fun, and come home safe to your family and friends every night.
When it comes to personal accountability, live it every day.
From rookie to experienced, don't become complacent, trust your instincts, and be aware of your surroundings at all times.
If you feel the hair on the back of your neck starting to stand up, take the initiative and speak up.
You're responsible for your actions. The decisions you make can have a direct impact on whether or not you go home.
Honor those firefighters who are not here today, by being the best firefighter you can be.
If you ever find yourself experiencing the worst day of your life, don't lose hope.